What I'm hearing in the practice is that men are intimidated by a woman that they need to take a quieter position at their side. The women are not taking a quieter position. They're demanding their own structure. They're demanding that the man be quiet at their side sometimes. And the men are angry about it, but the women are saying, that's your problem. I don't have to be responsible for your anger.
12 noon, and today we have a special half-hour edition of City Line. Hi, I'm Jackie Hall.
And I'm B.T. Bentley. Women of the 80s, a different breed, independent, career-minded, and full of definite opinions on their counterparts.
Join B.T., me, and an all-ladies audience for a discussion of women's views on men.
The 80s were a time where we began to move from limited television with rabbit ears to cable television and an expansion of viewing options. In this new environment and in the advent of cable television, a wide variety of new types of programs emerged, none of them more popular than the daytime talk show. In the daytime talk show era, we heard popular hosts like Donahue, Sally Jesse Raphael, and even Oprah talk about trending topics of the day with live audiences. One of those trending topics, relationships between black men and black women.
Psychologist Dr. Janice Stevenson will be joining us to help discuss these questions and more.
Join City Line for a discussion of women's views on men up next.
When we talk about the women of the 80s, is there something radically different or new about them?
I think in some ways women today are different in that they accept more parts of their personality. They don't limit themselves nearly as much as women of the 40s or the 50s did. They don't see their role as bound in by any parameters set by anyone other than themselves.
Early in the program, you hear the first mention of the new woman, the independent woman, one that is challenging roles that have been established since the 40s and 50s. And in this, Dr. Stevens issued an ominous warning.
Well, what sorts of things are they saying about us men these days?
A lot. You men are in trouble.
Now, when BT asked you a question about what are they saying about men, and you said men are in trouble, but aren't relationships in trouble?
I think,
men and women
yeah.
getting it together and making a go of it.
I think the relationships are going to survive, but they're in a state of transition.
As the 80s represented a new time for black men to consider new options for dating, questions about black men's dating choices were inevitable, and the doctor predicted the future.
Yes, I'd like to know why are black men gravitating toward white women? And I don't have any real personal problem with that, but I'd just like to hear talked about more. Maybe I can become more comfortable with the whole issue.
Unfortunately for many black women, there is a ghost alive inside of their heads and their hearts. A ghost that tells them that black men prefer white women over themselves. Often in the black community, debates over certain women being chosen because of their lighter skin color dominate conversations over dating. This argument is called colorism, and it was alive and well in the 1980s.
I think there are two answers to that, actually. One is the cultural answer to it. We're all socialized into a society, into the American society, that promotes this ideal white woman figure as the one to be sought after. And now with some release from some of the tenets of oppression in our society, men feel freer, and I hear black men saying this sometimes, they feel freer to pursue whatever is out there, and so they see themselves as pursuing a person, not a racial figure. And yet you'll find men who habitually pursue women who all are either very light-skinned or white, or who carry on a lot of the physical characteristics that this ideal model is supposed to be. And the men won't define it as a racial issue, but I think it's hard to ignore the racial overtones.
It was almost impossible to have a conversation about black men in the 1980s without acknowledging one universally accepted fact about black men. Too many of us were in jail, and that there weren't enough good ones of us to go around.
The other part of it, though, is the exercising of a freedom that's supposed to exist in our society to pick and choose whomever you wish as a partner. What part of the problem for the black woman is that too many of our black men are being channeled into self-destructive and socially unacceptable parts of our society, so they're not as available for us. And then somehow or other, the black woman does not seem to be as available to men of other races and other ethnic groups. So it seems to be an imbalance in that.
In conjunction with this argument over colorism is the inevitable. The argument for black women expanding their horizons is not a new one. It was alive and well in the 1980s.
Well, what is this then going to do in terms of the choices of black women in terms of finding, in quotation marks, those good men?
Part of what it means is that the black woman has to be real clear on what it is that she wants and what she defines as a good man, and then be as limitless as she can in the pursuit of that good man.
In speaking about the younger girls that she was mentoring, Dr. Stevenson alluded to the rise of a new type of woman, a woman that was just around the corner. She didn't know it yet, but she would go on to describe the 90s girl.
And women in the 20s, 30s, and 40-year age range are not being quite that aggressive, and so they sit waiting patiently for this good black guy to come knock on the door and say, here I am, and he's busy out looking for somebody else.
So the adolescent is the woman of the year 2000.
The adolescent is the woman of the year 2000, and she is going to be something else.
We should do another show on that.
What do you suggest would be a good approach to stimulate conversation, positive conversation about sensitive subjects without irritating your mate?
I don't have any problem with irritating your mate, so that's there's nothing wrong with him being irritated or stirred up.
Although the 80s talk show TV circuit was tilted greatly in the favor of women, it still offered women practical advice. Unlike today, where there's no filter and many young girls are getting fed relationship advice straight from women who may not have had success in their romantic lives, there were some talk shows that offered young girls practical, actionable advice, as was done here.
Because a lot of times I'll hear women talking about a struggle between the fantasy life that they have about where they think relationships should go, where Cinderella has said it should go, and where Sleeping Beauty has said it should go, versus what the realities of adult life say will happen to a relationship. Relationships take an awful lot of work, and I think sometimes we underestimate how much work it takes, and we're not willing to do it.
Dr. Stevenson went on to explain the phenomena that we know as the Pooky and Ray Ray argument. How dealing with certain men having unsuccessful relationships and turning bitter towards all men was a possible effect in this type of dating, one that has come to fruition. She indeed forecast the black gender wars.
Excellent points. One is the issue about women being queens. There are several books out now in the field about how women in this society are socialized to be submissive, docile, passive, and to have great expertise at picking out men who will abuse and who will berate you and who will humiliate you, and that the women will participate very actively in those relationships by mislabeling the quality of the relationship. They will not label these men as dangerous or as hurtful. They will not label the relationships as dangerous. And so when they find themselves hurt, it's like, well, that was a fluke. He didn't really mean that. That is a societal problem, not just of any one group, but a societal problem. Women have really got to treat themselves as queen. We are, and we have to start by believing it for ourselves first.
I implore anyone watching this video to go to Hezekiah News and Film and watch the complete 30-minute video. What you'll come to see is that many of the arguments made in this show are things that have come to fruition. Now, as we look at an expansion of passport bros and a burgeoning black divestment movement, many of the warnings she told the audience to heed went unanswered, and many of the things she said would come to pass now are. There was a time when the discourse between black men and women was healthier, less fragmented, and absent the black male voice in mass media. That time is no longer, and many of us are adapting in the best way we see fit. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment below. I'll catch you in the next video. Take care, guys.